This is Sony a7C. The C stands for cookie, and that's good enough for me. Sony a7C, by the way, C stands for compact, is a full frame camera that is fitted into a6600-like body. It's not only smaller, but it is lighter. A7C weighs 509 grams, which is 141 grams lighter than A7 III, which is one of Sony's best full-frame cameras. It's not only smaller and lighter, it's also cheaper. A7C is $200 cheaper than A7 III. And if you don't have a full-frame lens, you can get it with this 28 to 60 kit lens, which will make you enter the orange ring of full frame world, which there's no going back from it. Once you're in there, that's it. Has one magical feature, and that is stabilization. Now normally A7C doesn't have active stabilization like Sony a7S III does, but what this one has is that it records gyro data. Everything that happens to this camera, every little bit of shaking, it gets recorded, and then you can go and download this free app by Sony called Catalyst Browse and import this footage into that and apply as much stabilization as you like. You want 5% stabilization, 5% crop, you can apply that. You want 10%, that's good. You want to shoot in 4K and then have gimbal-like footage and you want to export in 1080p, apply 50% stabilization. It's fantastic and it's very, very useful, and it is better than the stabilization we have in our video editing programs, and I'll be talking about that later in the video. Now, I'm just gonna walk casually. By the way, the camera back there is pulling this camera out of my hand now, so this camera is actually shaking a little bit more than usual. I wonder how stabilization is doing. I felt like camera conspiracies. Oh, why did I say that? When we get the tone is upon us. Probably shouldn't done that. Is this good content? When it comes to specs, A7C is very much like A7 III, up to 4K 30 frames per second, 100 megabits per second, 420 8-bit video, real-time human and animal eye autofocus, 693 phase, 425 contrast auto detection points, 5-axis, 5-step in-body optical image stabilization, S-Log2, S-Log3, HLG, and it accepts the Z battery, which gives this camera the longest battery life. But there are so many advantages over A7 III. Just like I mentioned before, the Z battery in this camera lasts the longest amongst all the full frame cameras. And it has 5 gigahertz connection on top of 2.4 gigahertz, which means when it comes to transferring files via Wi-Fi, it's gonna do that a lot faster. And in autofocus settings, now we have more increments when it comes to responsiveness and the speed. Also, needless to say, we have the flip out screen. And when you connect this camera to an external monitor, the eye autofocus works up to 4K 24 frames per second. And of course, it comes in 2 colors. But it has some disadvantages too. For example, 1 memory card slot. So if you're gonna use this for professional stuff and you absolutely need backup, this may not be the camera for you. It also doesn't have USB micro port, It doesn't have an aperture dial. And when it comes to custom buttons, almost all of them are gone. Yes, you can customize the rest of the buttons, but most of the custom buttons, the C1, C2, C3, C4 that we know and love, are mostly not existent on this camera. The grip is very small, so when this camera is in your hand, it kind of tends to not stay there. The other cameras, they just rest on your hand while you're carrying the camera around. This one, not so much. The grip is very small, so I recommend you to get a strap for your wrist. That takes care of this problem. Now when it comes to screen, the screen is not bad, but the problem is if you're wearing polarized sunglasses like I do, the screen gets blocked. Now there's a very simple fix for this. You just apply a screen protector to the screen and it gets fixed. But there's actually something else you can do. You can get a film screen protector, not a glass one, and find that angle. There's this magical angle that cancels out that polarization problem once and for all. So get a bigger screen protector, a film screen protector, put it on the screen, find the angle and cut it. The problem is gone. Plus, you can set the screen brightness to sunny weather regardless of the resolution and the frame rate. And just like a7 III, it has 17% crop when you switch to 4K 30 frames per second. However, the weakest link on a7C is the electronic viewfinder. It is small and I feel like it definitely needs better refresh rate and a hood. The other thing is the menu. We have the old menu. I wish it had the new menu. We can have the new menu. I use the new menu that we have in a7S III with joysticks and stuff, and it works pretty well. So with a firmware update, I think we can get it to a7C. I wish this camera shot 4K 60 frames per second. Just think about it. A7S III shoots 4K 120 frames per second. This shoots 4K 60 frames per second. It would have been great. But I think with 4K 60 frames per second, there could have been some overheating issues. And I'm guessing Sony didn't want to put in a half-baked feature in there. Overheating half-baked feature. And while we're talking about overheating, I haven't experienced any overheating with this camera at all in my daily usage. Looking at the price over performance of a7C, I can easily say that Sony created a new category right between Sony's APS-C sensor and full-frame interchangeable lens cameras. A much needed category if you ask me. If you have a cell phone that you're shooting your video with, if you have a 1-inch sensor camera or Micro Four Thirds or APS-C, and if you want to upgrade to a full-frame camera system, actually a7C is a very budget-friendly, complete solution. Let's say you're entering the full-frame world for the first time. What do you need? You need a body. What else do you need? You need a lens. When do you need it? Well, you need it the second you buy the body. Also, you need memory cards. You need microphones. You need a computer to edit the video and this and that. So with this a7C, everything is a lot more reachable. With a7S III, for example, CF Express Type A card is $400. The memory card reader for CF Express Type A is $120 because it's such a new technology. It's just introduced. With this one, the technology has been out there. They've made it in much more affordable, compact, small, and light body. The kit lens, which is what I'm using right now, is absolutely fine. It will get you started. And if you want to zoom, you can actually zoom with this lens. Hey! And if you want more zoom, you can switch to APS-C mode. Let's do that. Hey, look at that. Very nice with the simple kit lens. We got this. If this camera existed back when I had that camera crisis, my old subscribers will remember, I would definitely wait and save and get this camera instead of anything else. First of all, the Super 35 feature is extremely useful. Since this camera is 24.2 megapixels and all we need is 8.5 megapixels for 4K video, what it can do is it can crop in and still record in 4K, giving you a different angle from the same camera. Look at this. This is 24mm lens. Now I'm gonna switch to APS-C crop. Boom! It's like we have two lenses at the price of one. And if you're new to this system, the full frame system, you probably don't have a lot of lenses. So this comes in very handy. I still use this while I'm doing the beauty shots. I switch to APS-C mode when I need to get closer to something. It's a really good trick. Also, having that gyro data in your footage is a lifesaver. The stabilization feature on your video editing software tries to stabilize the footage based on what it sees, which doesn't give you the best results always. But when you have the gyro data, the software knows what's happening and it fixes the footage accordingly. Also, this is not just video or just photo oriented camera. This is in between, so you can take amazing photos and great videos with it. Needless to say, 10 frames per second burst mode with auto exposure and autofocus is, as usual, a lot of fun. In the end, a7C is a small, light and affordable full-frame camera that has big tricks in its small body. It is extremely convenient to have such practical camera in hand that captures such great footage. Back when I reviewed the a7 III, it was really hard to send it back to Sony. With this, it is even harder. If you're thinking about getting into full-frame world, I think this is a great opportunity to consider. I think you're gonna love it.